Hi, this is Peter from The Movable Chef. Today I'll be making a variety of different mezza-style dips or spreads. So I'll be filming all of these at one time. I'll be wearing the same shirt for all of them. So I do change clothes occasionally. I'm just filming about 3 videos at once. The first one I'll be making is a baba ganoush or baba ganoush, depending on whether you want the Turkish or the Greek pronunciation. And the first thing to do is to roast the eggplant. We have an oven at 375 degrees, and you need to pierce the eggplant, get some holes through it so that the moisture can come through and leave the eggplant. You don't need to salt it or anything like that first, because the roasting process will help it get less bitter. You can pierce it with a knife, of course. I usually use a long skewer because it lets me go all the way across and all the way through pretty easily. And you just want to put a bunch of holes in them. So usually one all the way through, and maybe 4 through the sides, just to get it nice and ventilated. So once we have the eggplant pierced, it goes on a cookie sheet. You really don't need to oil these or anything because the skin's going to get peeled off and thrown away. So we don't need to do anything special to the outside of them. No seasonings, no oil. Toss them in an oven at 375 for about 1 hour. We'll come back and check on those in a little bit and see how they're doing.
After about an hour of cooking, we'll remove those eggplants from the oven and let them thoroughly cool so they can be safely handled. Let them cool for at least half an hour. You'll see the eggplant's kind of deflated looking, it's soft to the touch. And now we're going to want to peel the thick, tough outer skin off that eggplant. If you peel off a piece of skin and the eggplant pulp sticks, just use a spoon or a paring knife and scrape the flesh of the eggplant out and put it into the food processor. We want to make sure we conserve all the cooked eggplant. This should go pretty quickly and pretty easily because that outer skin really will be pretty tough at this point, and the inner part of the eggplant is going to be really soft. So because of that difference, it should peel pretty easily. And just work your way around the eggplant, peeling off the skin as you go until it's completely clear. So we flipped it over and it's coming off in large pieces now. Once we get the eggplant completely peeled, we're going to want to coarsely chop the pulp of the eggplant so that it will process smoothly in the food processor and not get wrapped around the blade at all. So we're just going to finish peeling this, and then a couple of big chops just into large 2 to 3 inch pieces, and throw it all into the food processor. Once we've done this eggplant, we're going to go on and do the second eggplant that we cooked at the same time and add that to the food processor as well. And then we'll continue on with finishing off the baba ganoush. We now have both eggplants chopped up and placed into the food processor. We're going to add about a half a cup of tahini paste. You can add a little bit more later if you'd like to taste, but we can start off with a half cup. And then we're going to process this for about 30 to 45 seconds until the eggplant is thoroughly chopped up and smooth and that tahini is well incorporated with the eggplant. So the eggplant's been processed reasonably smooth at this point. So to that, we're going to add 3 cloves of garlic. Just toss those in. They've been peeled, but they're still whole. And then we're going to add about a half a cup of olive oil. We're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of cumin and about 1/3 to half a cup of breadcrumbs. It depends a little bit as to how wet your eggplant are as to how much breadcrumbs to add. They tend to hold it together and bind it a bit, dry it out a bit if you will. We're also going to add some lemon juice. And I'll start out by adding the juice of 1.5 lemons, and I'll reserve the other half lemon towards the end. I can taste it at that point, decide if it needs a little bit more tartness or acidity, and add the other half lemon at that point. Well, let's start off with 1.5 lemons, and we'll just squeeze those directly into the food processor. And now we're going to add about 1/3 cup of Greek style or drained yogurt. You can either buy a Greek yogurt or you can take a regular yogurt and put it in a fine mesh strainer over the sink for a while. And then finally we're going to coarsely chop a small yellow onion. It just has to be chopped fine enough that it will process well in the food processor. It doesn't have to be finely minced here, just peeled and coarsely or roughly chopped. And you'll see I slice my onions vertically with a little bit of the root side cut off, so I've got a flat cutting surface. I know everyone else holds them flat with the palm of their hand and slices across the top. I just can't get comfortable doing that, so I use a slightly different technique. So we'll quickly chop these and add them to the food processor to get finely milled with the rest of the ingredients. Now we'll go ahead and process this until the garlic and the onions are pretty finely chopped and fully incorporated into the baba ganoush. I'll add a little bit of salt. I'll start off with about 1.5 teaspoons and check for flavor balance later. And then I'm going to grind in some fresh black pepper. Probably about 1 teaspoon of fresh black pepper is being ground in at this point. And then just spin that around to mix it up. And it's time to taste it to see how we're doing in terms of salt and lemon and flavor. It's going to need a little bit more salt and a little bit more yogurt and a little bit more pepper. That's why I give a range of seasonings when I put these recipes in, because it really depends upon how big the eggplants are that you're using, how wet they are, how roasted they were, time of year, and also how salty and how peppery you like things. So we've balanced our flavors, and we'll see how that. Now that we have the seasonings right, we are going to remove the cover of the processor, and the last thing we're going to add is some flat leaf parsley. Just give it a coarse chop and throw it in at the last minute. We don't really want this finely ground and processed. We just want to mix it through and still have some pieces of parsley visible in the finished baba ganoush. Give that nice color contrast when you serve it. So just add it in and give it a quick spin in the processor. Now we're ready to serve this, to plate it. I'm going to put it in a small bowl. You'll see as I dish it out that it's relatively loose. That was by design. If you wanted yours to be a little bit stiffer, you could add a little bit less yogurt or a little bit more breadcrumbs, and it would firm up a bit in the refrigerator as well. To garnish this, a little of flat leaf parsley or a little bit of olive oil or a little dusting of cumin would all be nice. A lot of different ways you could garnish this for serving. And that is our baba ganoush. If you'd like the recipe and the ingredients list, it's available at themovable chef.com. This has been Peter, and thank you very much.